Hello everybody, MilPro Akron here. I know it's been a while since I put together a real video other than doing shout outs and a couple of updates, so here I am. There's been so many things in the news lately that I kind of was compelled to put something together. It was a very bad weekend. A local Marine EOD technician lost his life in Afghanistan, and of course the 38 men who lost their lives in Afghanistan when their Chinook was shot down by the Taliban with a lucky shot from an RPG. Lost a lot of good men, and it's always tragic when we lose anyone in the war, but to lose so many in one incident is really exceptionally tragic, especially when considering that these were the best of the best that our nation has to offer when it comes to our warriors. So it was a very tragic weekend, and my heart goes out to the family and the loved ones of those men who were lost this weekend. But the world is also still on fire in more places than it was the last time I said the world was on fire. And it's no longer just the Arab Spring. I don't know why they named it that, but London is having a nightmare situation take place over there. But it brings to mind why we prepare and why we talk about survival. Could that happen here in the United States? Absolutely. In an isolated way, in a single city or a single section of a city, it has happened historically here in the United States, and it could happen again. So imagine what the people in London are going through if they live in that neighborhood or they live near that neighborhood, the amount of fear and anxiety that they must be feeling right now, knowing that by law they technically don't have the means of defending themselves against this, crazy mob of rioters and looters. They gave up their right to keep and bear arms many, many years ago, so they don't have the ability to protect themselves or their own property or their loved ones. Of course, we here in the United States, we have a few more options, and it may be why things like this don't happen as often as they do in other parts of the world, but who knows. But what it has to make you think of is, what would I do? And the whole concept of preparing is not just for a natural disaster or global annihilation or the apocalypse or martial law or, oh my God, the Chinese invaded. You have to, these are the types of things that I personally worry about and I think about, is civil unrest and our law enforcement being incapable of managing that situation. Because believe me, if something like that happens, they're not going to be able to manage it. Not immediately. Eventually they will get control of the situation and they will bring order back to the neighborhood. But it could take days or weeks in order to do that. So you have to be prepared. You have to have a plan. Number one, plan. What am I going to do if I can't get home or I'm at home and all hell breaks loose? Well, you have to have an alternate place to go. So you and your family have to plan for what to do in the event that we cannot go home. Let's say you're at work and this insane riot breaks loose in your neighborhood and it's just not safe for you to return home. You have to have an alternate place to go. So that's the first part of your plan. The second part of your plan has to be supplies. What am I going to have if I can't go home? So a lot of us carry a simple bug out bag with us all the time in our vehicle, in your trunk, sort of like an emergency kit. You talk about geocaching. Analytical Survival did an excellent video on geocaching. Stashing items out, in the countryside or somewhere else where you can retrieve them, where no one knows where they are, and you map them out, and in an emergency, if you can't get to your main cache or your home, where all of your supplies are, you can go to this geocache and retrieve the essentials that you need to survive for this perhaps a temporary situation, or you can retrieve all of your geocaches and put them together into a large kit if you are never going to be able to go back to your home or your main cache. So you have to think about those. What are you going to carry with you every day in an emergency kit in your vehicle, in your backpack, that's going to make it possible for you to survive in the event that you cannot get home? It may be for a few hours, it may be for a few days, it may be for a few weeks, but you have to have a plan that you're going to implement in the event that that happens. So where's your gun and ammunition if that's your number one thing that you're going to worry about? Do you have the capability of carrying it legally or having it in your vehicle legally? You have to make sure that it's legal because you don't want to get yourself in trouble and have it confiscated and have your ass thrown in jail just because you're a survivalist and you had a plan. Make sure your plan is within the confines of the law in some way. Now, I know some people are worried less about that than they are with the survival aspect, but it's much more likely that you'll be pulled over by the police for some reason than it is that the apocalypse is going to happen. So if you want to go to jail, you can violate the law with your guns and ammunition in your vehicles or whatever and carry them illegally. It's up to you. But you have to know that you're going to have access to food, shelter, water, because these are not in order. As most of us know, the number one thing that you need to survive is water. Number 2 is shelter from the elements. And number 3 is food, because you can go longer without food than you can being exposed to the elements and going without water. Some of us can go a lot longer than others. But anyway, you need to have a plan in place. You need to have these things cached or have emergency kits at a relative's house. Just go to your relative, someone who lives away from, far enough away from your neighborhood that if something terrible happens in your neighborhood, you can go there and drop off a bag there and just say, hey, I got this suitcase full of stuff. It's, my survival gear. I want to keep a bag here. If you don't mind, just let me toss it in your garage or put it in your basement or your attic, and we'll leave it here in the event of an emergency. And get them involved. And hopefully, if they're smart enough, then they'll do the opposite with you. Leave something at your house in case they can't go home. So you need to have these discussions. You need to make these plans with your family and, yes, with your children. You have to let your children know what to do if they're on their way home from school and all of a sudden they're told that they can't go home. So you have to have these things written out, discussed, and you have to have meetings, family meetings, to discuss them so that everybody is on the same page, so that everyone knows if something happens and we can't go home, this is where we're going to meet. This is where we'll all, get together and take a head count and make sure that we're all safe. So keep those things in mind. Keep an eye on the news, and hopefully these riots and out of control situations won't spill over into the United States. But first of all, they started rioting because a retard drug dealing thug was shot by the police and killed. I don't really care. You can, Mr. Policeman, you can shoot as many drug dealing thugs as you want. Won't bother me at all. I have no plans to riot over that. As a matter of fact, if they could resurrect him and shoot him again, that would be cool with me. So I have no sympathy for that. I'm sure that most of the people involved in this riot have no idea why they're rioting. They're just, they're falling victim to the mob mentality. Everybody else is doing it, so I'm going to do it. Which means that they're very weak mentally as a people, and they have no self-control, because that riot should have lasted about 10 minutes. As soon as it broke out, the other citizens in the neighborhood should have crushed those people like worms and put an end to it. But unfortunately, in today's world, nobody acts that way. Nobody takes care of their own. They would rather sit back and watch someone burn down their neighborhood. But not me. So it's probably never going to happen in my neighborhood. Anyway, it's MilPro Akron, just some food for thought. I'll put some more videos together here pretty soon, and I will see you all on the other side. In the meantime, train safe, train hard, stay alive.